Welcome everyone to our Father Arbury Jack Guillebeau's celebration of life. Our mom, Fafa, who has been his soulmate for the last 56 years, appreciates every card, message, prayer, meal, and contribution, flower, and service that you have provided. We understand that many of you drove from a distance, and we appreciate the things that you have done for our family. For those friends that have joined us virtually, literally from all around the world. The news of our dad's passing has reached the Universal House of Justice, the International Governing Council of the Baha'i Faith, the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States, and the Regional Council of the Southern States. Minu, Hami, and I will be reading those messages to you. This is from the Universal House of Justice. Dear Baha'i friends, the Universal House of Justice was saddened to learn from your email letter of August the 30th, 2021. I sent to one of our members of the passing of the devoted follower of the ancient beauty, Arbury Jack Guillebeaux, and extends to you and the members of the family its condolences. His many decades of service to the cause of God are recalled with appreciation. Rest assured of the supplications of the House of Justice at the holy threshold for the progress of his soul in the heavenly kingdom, as well as for the comfort and solace of his family members and other loved ones in this time of bereavement. With loving Baha'i greetings, the Department of the Secretariat. Hello, friends. Baha'is believe that the life of the individual begins at conception, when the soul associates itself with the embryo. When death occurs, the soul continues to progress in the spiritual worlds of God. Quote, to consider that after the death of the body, the spirit perishes, Abdu'l-Baha has said, is like imagining that a bird in a cage will be destroyed if the cage is broken. Though the bird has nothing to fear from the destruction of the cage, our body is like the cage and the spirit is like the bird. If the cage becomes broken, the bird will continue and exist. Its feelings will be even more powerful, its perceptions greater, and its happiness increased. Reading from the National Spiritual Assembly, dated September 2nd, 2021. Dear Skarzarnek, together with his legion of friends, we share your sorrow in the passing of your beloved husband, Arbury Guillebeaux, best known to all who loved and admired him as Jack, and join you in paying tribute to his rich, full, and exemplary life. Growing up in Asheville, a city just west of North Carolina's Piedmont region, Jack knew from childhood the atmosphere of racial tension, daily indignities, and unjust and discriminatory practices that were common threads in the uneasy fabric of life in African American communities in the mid-20th century American South. Yet from early on, he made a conscious decision to resist the impulse to return hate with hate. Rather, he met each living soul with whom he came in contact with the same natural warmth, goodwill, friendliness, and openness. Small wonder then that when he was introduced to the Baha'i faith as a young man, he embraced it with enthusiasm for its pivotal teaching of the oneness of the human family. Nor was it a surprise when at a Baha'i gathering, having met an Iranian student, every bit as match in capacity, intelligence, and articulateness, Jack launched a courtship that paid no heed to the bigoted taboo of the time, discouraging interracial relationships. In time, you joined hands and hearts in a marital partnership that for some 56 years provided you with wondrous opportunities to learn and grow together in service to God and humanity. The compass of a letter like this makes it impossible to adequately summarize a life and Baha'i career like Jack's. But we cannot fail to mention his many years in elected posts, ranging from local to regional, including a full decade of the early regional council, Baha'i Council of the Southern states, later South Central states. Limitations of time and space preclude us from enumerating them in full, but there were also many years of service in appointed posts, ranging from his membership on the Baha'i Faith's 2 auxiliary boards to efforts on behalf of several significant national committees. For each and every one of these invaluable services, we will be deeply grateful. We extend to you, dearest Fafa, Jack's cherished wife, our heartfelt condolences on the loss you have sustained, asking you to share them with your and Jack's children, Audrey, Minu, and Hami, with your adored grandchildren, and with all the members of your extended family. Be certain we will remember Jack fondly in our prayers and will offer supplications for the eternal progress of his radiant soul and for your sweet and everlasting reunion one day in the realms of the immortal spirit. With tender Baha'i love, Kenneth E. Bowers, Secretary, National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States.
Hey everybody. I didn't wear glasses because they didn't quite go with this outfit. So I'm gonna.
Do you want some glasses?
I didn't, I need my regular.
Sorry.
All right, bear with me. Regional Baha'i Council of the Southeastern States, September 1st, 2021. To Farzana, Guillebeaux, and the Guillebeaux family, Audrey Corder, Mina Rashou, and Hami Guillebeaux. Dearly loved Fafar, the Southeast Regional Baha'i Council was deeply saddened to learn of the passing of dearly loved Jack, beloved husband and lifelong partner, devoted servant of God. Yet we are confident that the concourse on high is warmly welcoming this cherished one, and that he is rejoicing in the spiritual journey to his heart's desire. We celebrate Jack's lifelong service to the cause he loved so dearly, in which he served steadfastly for decades, serving in many roles, including longtime service on local spiritual assemblies, as well as service as an auxiliary board member and his professional life as well, including his work with Focal and Visions and a highlight in service with the Baha'i World Center. Throughout his life, Jack crossed paths with so many who have been touched by his love, his humor, his dedication to contributing to the betterment of society, including your groundbreaking marriage at a time in history that made such a union dangerous. The contributions you and Jack made towards the goal of eliminating racial prejudice are numerous and have reached individuals and communities far and wide. The spirit and love that Jack had for his beloved faith is evident in the service being advanced by his children. Please accept our heartfelt condolences for your loss and our love for you and your dear family. Be assured of the council's prayers for the progress of his radiant soul in the Abha kingdom. O thou provider, O thou forgiver. A noble soul hath ascended unto the kingdom of reality and hastened from the mortal world of dust to the realm of everlasting glory. Exalt the station of this recently arrived guest and attire this long-standing servant with a new wondrous robe. O thou peerless Lord, grant thy forgiveness and tender care so that this soul may be admitted into the retreats of thy mysteries and may become an intimate companion in the assemblage of splendors. Thou art the giver, the bestower, the ever-loving. Thou art the pardoner, the tender, the most powerful Abdu'l-Baha. With loving regards, Regional Council of the Southern States, somebody's name, Linda Athie Grant. Yes. Linda. Yes. Hi, Linda.
Hello, all. Man, it's so nice to be here today, and it's lovely to see all of your faces even masked up. Glorified art thou, O Lord my God. I give thee thanks inasmuch as thou hast called me into being in thy days, and infused into me thy love and thy knowledge. I beseech thee by thy name, whereby the goodly pearls of thy wisdom in thine utterance were brought forth out of the treasuries of the hearts of such of thy servants as are nigh unto thee, and through which the day star of thy name, the compassionate, hath shed its radiance upon all that are in thy heaven and on thy earth, to supply me by thy grace and bounty with thy wondrous and hidden bounties. These are the earliest days of my life, O my God, which thou hast linked with thine own days. Now that thou hast conferred upon me so great an honor, withhold not from me the things thou hast ordained for thy chosen ones. I am, O my God, but a tiny seed which thou hast sown in the soil of thy love, and caused to spring forth by the hand of thy bounty. This seed craveth, therefore, in its inmost being, for the waters of thy mercy and the living fountain of thy grace. Send down upon it from the heaven of thy loving kindness that which will enable it to flourish beneath thy shadow and within the borders of thy court. Thou art he who watereth the hearts of all that have recognized thee from thy plenteous stream and the fountain of thy living waters. Praise be God, the Lord of the worlds. Allah.
Jack the Giant. O Lord, my God, open thou the door, provide the means, make safe the path, and pave the way. For verily thou art the help in peril, the self-subsisting Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah.
When I read this passage from the Baha'i writings, my heart was really, really happy to know that Jack is on the other side. So please listen to it very carefully, because it talks about who we are when we go to the other side. It's a beautiful image of what Jack is experiencing. As to the question whether the soul will recognize each other in the spiritual world, this fact is a certainty. For the kingdom is the world of vision, where all of the concealed realities will become disclosed. How much more the well-known souls will become manifest, the mysteries of which man is heedless in this earthly world, those he will discover in the heavenly world. And there he be informed of the secret of truth. How much more will he recognize or discover persons with whom he hath been associated? So imagine who Jack is playing around with right now, with all of his attitude. Undoubtedly, the souls who find a pure eye and are favored with insight will, in the kingdom of light, be acquainted with all mysteries and will seek the bounty of witnessing the reality of every great soul. Even they will manifestly behold the beauty of God in that world. Likewise, will they find all the friends of God, both those of the former and in the recent times, present in the heavenly assemblage. So think about Jack seeing his mom, after all these years, and all the other wonderful friends of ours who have gone to the other world. It makes me so happy.
This prayer is on behalf of Jack, Force of Baha'i. Subhanaka Allahumma ya Elohim tahhirini summa uzuni summa lisani summa qalbi summa ruhi summa nafsi summa jismi summa jasadi an التوجه إلى غيرك ثم اشربني من كأس عزك المختوم تبارك الذي بيده ملك السماوات والأرض وإنه كان على كل شيء حسيبا.
O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom?
Know thou assuredly that love is the mystery of divine revelation. Love is the effulgent manifestation. Love is the spiritual fulfillment. Love is the light of the kingdom. Love is the breath of the Holy Spirit, inspired into the human spirit. Love is the cause of the manifestation of the truth, God, in the phenomenal world. Love is the necessary tie proceeding from the realities of things through divine creation. Love is the means of the most great happiness in both the material and spiritual worlds. Love is the light of guidance in the dark night. Love is a bond between the Creator and the creature in the inner world. Love is the cause of development to every enlightened man. Love is the greatest law in this vast universe of God. Love is the one law which causeth and controlleth order among the existing atoms. Love is the universal magnetic power between the planets and the stars shining in the lofty firmament. Tablets of Abdul-Baha.
In awesome wonder, consider all the worlds thy hands have made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come, shout of acclamation, and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration, and then proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, 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 thou
Sometimes when my babies sing, I can't breathe. That was my son, Louis, and my new baby, Tamaria, my daughter-in-law, who I love more than life itself. My babies are amazing. So you guys are getting ready to hear from some heavy hitters in Dad's life. People that knew him and worked with him. But before the heavy hitters, I want to tell you a little bit about my daddy. My father, Arbury Jack Guillebeaux, gave me some incredible things. He started that with giving me my name, Audrey Jacqueline. The only thing he left off was Junior. I was a little grateful for that. But that name connected me to my dad in ways that are unimaginable. Dad set a standard in my life for me to strive for anything and everything. There was nothing that I couldn't do according to my daddy. When I am at my mother-in-law's house and my sister Kim and they have to put something together, they call me. Because my mother-in-law, Linda, says that old boy can put anything together. That's what Daddy taught me. I can put anything together. There's not anything that I was afraid of trying, nothing that I ever walked away from because of my dad. My friend Lori Green and I, unlike my friend Maria, she graduated in 4 years. Lori and I were on the 5-year plan. So we rented this house and it was amazing. It was big, it was beautiful. And we rented secondhand everything. So we got a washer and it ran and did great for a while. And then all of a sudden it stopped. So I called Dad and I said, Dad, you know, the dryer has stopped. And he said, well, what's wrong with it? I said, I feel the heat, but the tumblers, it's not turning. The drum isn't turning. He said, this is what you do. Can you get the back off? And I said, sure, that's easy. So I pushed it up. We got the back off. He said, what do you see? I said, well, the belt is in the bottom and it's broken. He said, okay, I want you to take that belt to Lowe's and get a new one. So Lori and I were real happy. Daddy's on the way. We were doing the Daddy's on the way dance. So I got back and I called Daddy, who was in town, and said, Dad, we got the belt. And he said, great. Now this is what you do to put it on. That project was deeply mine. No way he was going to let me not get that project done. Don't get me started on me being on the side of the road with Dad in the car. Tire went flat. I'm on the car swinging my feet. Dad's next to me swinging his feet. Ultimately, I had to change that tire with his guidance. The father that I have and the integrity that he showed, that he gave me, I will never, ever lose. My father made sure that as I was leaving every trip from Montgomery or Athens, I would kiss him on the head and I would say, Daddy, I'm about to hit the road and I'm gonna drive as fast as you did in your early days. And he'd say, please don't you do that. But there was one message that he did give me. He said, you tell Lee that I said, thank you for sharing me with him. He said, I don't take it for granted that your time away from him is even less important than you being with me. So Lee, thank you for allowing me to spend the necessary time with my dad and my mother, my baby sister. So one final goodbye from Daddy. He says, thank you for sharing me with him.
So today I want to share a piece of advice that my dad gave me many years ago, and it stuck with me. As you know, some of you know, I followed in my mom's footsteps and became a psychotherapist. And like both of them, I decided to become an entrepreneur as well. But at this time in my life, I was at the School of Social Work as an adjunct professor, and I was about to do my first cultural diversity class. And I shared with my dad that I was terrified. And you know, I knew some things. I had been a visions consultant for several years off and on. I am a member of the Baha'i faith, so I certainly know how to try to do some consulting and consultation, right? And I've been on lots of committees and local spiritual assemblies. However, I was afraid that a student would raise their hand and ask me something that I should have known, and I would look silly and I would be ashamed in front of the whole class. So my dad, I told him that, and he said, the piece of advice he gave me, he said, just own from the beginning that you don't know everything, right? And he said, and that you're in the learning mode just like they are. And then the pressure is off. He said, recognize how much knowledge and experience is in the room. And then invite those people to share what they know, their expertise, and the class is going to be on point. It's going to be beautiful. That's exactly what I did. I followed his advice to the T. I asked students to speak up when they were the experts, and it was magnificent. It really was. In addition, I asked both my parents to come and guest speak, and of course, well received. And after my dad did his sharing, it was a question and answer time. And there was a young white student who asked a question. And she said, I was just wondering why Black people seem to be kind of defended against well-meaning, well-intentioned white people. And I kind of got a little tense because I didn't know how he was going to answer that question. And in his way, he chose to use an example from his own life. And he said in Montgomery, in the early days of social activism, he went to a white woman's home who was all about social justice, and they had a wonderful evening and they had dinner, and it was fantastic. Not a few weeks later, he said, he was walking in the mall, Montgomery Mall, and he saw this woman and went to go and speak to her because he was excited to see her, right? And she, with her body language, got tense, and she turned away and she walked by him as if she didn't know him. And so in that example, he showed that student, and he demonstrated to all of us, really, he was defining a microaggression. I don't think he used that word at that point, but that's what it was. And he said that as a Black man in the Deep South, he often experienced that sometimes on a daily basis, these little cuts that hurt. And so he made us understand, but he did it with such kindness and such patience and such love that she didn't feel silly for asking the question, and everyone understood. And when I tell you that years later, people came up to me from that class and they said, wow, we're so happy that you invited your parents to speak and to share them with us. My dad encouraged me to know myself. To know my worth, to be bold, to have vision, to take chances, to stand on principle, and to learn from my mistakes. I'm gonna miss you so much, Daddy. Thank you. That was my Uncle John telling a story about how Daddy would be so worn
worn out after hanging out. So he had to rush home and dive in the bed.
To my family, thank you for giving me this opportunity to say a few words about someone who has been in my life for more than half of my life. There are many labels to describe my friend Jack, your husband, your dad, mentor, teacher, student, brother, protector, friend. I will just share with you a few examples of some of those. When I first met Jack, he was a mentor. Later, maybe a couple of years, he asked me if he could work for me. He was 13 years older than me. He had already run an organization. All I had been was an intern. He was a fundraiser. And I'm going, wow. He was a trainer, a facilitator. And I said, Jack, how do you feel working for a female who is so much more inexperienced than you? And he said, you're honest. This organization is doing some important work, and I will never knowingly undercut your leadership as executive director. And with 40 some years, he never did that. It showed his integrity, his respect for women, his respect for his faith. And there was something he said to me a couple of years after we were working together. He said to me, Sophia, I'm concerned about you. You are trying to care for and take care of everybody. You're not going to last that way. You are not going to hold out. And there's a part of you, there's a deep-seated rage inside of you based upon things that have happened to you, that if you don't get some help, I am so afraid you are not going to last very long. And he meant with life. And I know just the person that can help you. And I wonder if you can guess who that person was, who's been in my life as my therapist since 1977. Okay. I also want to share a couple of other points about Jack. Jack was a student also, you know. When I saw Jack in May, he said, after nudging him to go inside to get some food, he goes, Sophia, I don't need to eat, I'm dying. I said, okay, and I wanted to get smart and say we all are dying, but I held off. And he said, but you know what? I've never died before. So I want to experiment with this process of dying. You know, I want to see what it's about. I want to experience and feel what it is and so forth. And there were a couple of times I called him over the period of the last couple of months and I said, how are you coming with your process? You know, what are you learning? And he told me about memory, told me about forgetting names, told me about not being able to remember who was coming in and out, to, caring for him. And I said, well, it might help you to remember those that's washing your butt. However, about 8 days ago, before he left us, I called. Actually, Fafa brought the phone to him and said, Jack want to talk to you. And so I said, Jack, don't think you're leaving here without updating me on this progress of your experiment. What have you learned? What are you taking away from it? His voice was weak and it was kind of raspy, but he said to me, the things that we think are so important are not that important at all. I want to share with you 2 others and I'll be done. When my son was about 5, 6, 7, Jack and I travel a lot. And many of those trips were together and some were separately as we fundraise for the organization, New York, DC, anywhere we could go find some money. And his boards and and training and so forth. My son was always very, very nervous about my flying on airplanes. And he would often plead with me. So as I'm getting ready, 5:30 in the morning, I would awake him because I didn't want him to wake up later on and I was gone. And I said, Alden, I'm leaving. So this past Mother's Day, my son was taking me for breakfast, probably the first time I've been out eating in about a year. And I said, Al, do you remember when you were little and I would come in and wake you about 5 or 5:30 in the morning and say, Al, I'm getting ready to leave. And you would turn over and say, Mom, is Mr. Jack going with you? And if I said yes, he would say, bye, Mom, I love you. If he said no, you would start to plead with me, Mom, don't go. Don't go, Mom. Don't go on the airplane. Please don't go, Mom. And you would often be in tears. As I'm saying this to my son, who's 41 now, I saw a stream of tears lapping under his mask. And I said, Alden, what pricked this sadness for you? And he said, Mom, I remember feeling that if Jack went with you, you would come back home to me. That's the little boy already gleaning that protection spirit of Jack Guillebeaux. Jack gave me many, many directives. I gave him a few, but he gave me many. And the last was December 2020. I got a call. Fafa was on the phone and said, Jack wanted to speak with you, Sophia. And it was not many hours after an 8-hour surgery. Jack said to me, Sophia, I have been warring and fighting with trumpeters and other angels, fighting all night. Get that book published. Get it published and keep your authentic voice. For the last year, I've been seeking and searching publishers for my memoir, which Jack was the firmest pusher on getting my story out there. An hour later, I called the person working with me and said, let's self-publish. I was so happy to get that book where Jack held it in his hand. And the other part to that telling me to get the book published, he said, people need to learn about loving each other and how to love each other. And I want you to know, family, and all of us, it is no doubt in my mind that our friend, our family member, is in consultation with Baha'i Allah, Jesus, and God about how to help us humans understand that our destiny is inescapable, linked together, and what affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. That was Jack Guillebeaux, always pushing for togetherness, always lifting up the oneness of humankind, always trying to help somebody to be better and understand themselves better. And as he said to me on one of those conversations, Sophia, if you want to support the next generation, ask more questions and give less advice.
Well, as you might can tell, I'm family. And that's family. My name is Wekesa Olatunji Majimoyo. And I'm going to read something because if I get going, I'd be up here a minute. And on the evening that I learned that Jack had transitioned, I went upstairs. First, I called Fafa, and she was all right. He'd prepared us. Then I called my sister, our sister, Sophie, and we had a great visit. And then I said, I'm going to spend whatever time, however much or little it is, with Jack and his spirit. So this is what came out of that. Tonight, I learned that another tall timber has fallen. After talking to his wife, Fafa, and my sister, Sophia Bracy Harris, I settled to allow myself to feel the spirit of Arbury Jack Guillebeaux through the years. Jack always soared. Now his spirit has grown new wings. Donny Hathaway's song, Thank You, Master, for My Soul, is the soundtrack starting this journey. I lose count of how many times I've played it tonight. Guillebeaux was my Baba. Though we never used that term, it means father. Guillebeaux was my brother, my teacher, my sparring partner. Now and again, I'd get one in, and he'd learn from me. I was honored. After working in the focal office all day, we'd sometimes stand for hours in the cold parking lot of Montgomery's Beulah Baptist Church, steel sharpening steel. At other times, he'd be guiding me step by step to rebuild the engine of my old blue Ford Maverick, or be teaching me not to abandon myself when I misspelled a word presenting before a group. The next song, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. Jack was never heavy. Most times he was 2 steps ahead. I had to be sharp to know that he needed anything. Even more critical for me at that time was that I never seemed too heavy for him. I'm the man I am because Guillebeaux showed me paths I'd never seen and could never have traversed alone. But he never wanted groupies, nor did he aspire to be anyone's guru. He sought to touch our spirits and to have us touch his. He enabled and pushed me and everyone around him to be the best we could be, to envision, then chart our paths and take responsibility for making it work or growing from the lessons. He told me once that if I adopted a position or chose a course that he had chosen, to make sure that I also wanted it, and I believed in it, because he might change his mind tomorrow. Like the blues, he was steadfast and spontaneous, dependable and creative at the same time. He never tired of learning, giving, calling things into existence. Together, he, I, and our sister Sophia would create. Sometimes he and I were too much and got on her last good nerve. For Guillebeaux, the artist, justice and unconditional love guided his technique. Spirit, vision, passion, compassion, intellect, and power were his brushes. I'll call on Jack's adopted father, Ray Charles, to help me end this sojourn down memory lane. Though Jack knew all of the songs, 2 songs will do. On occasion when someone thought they had a better solution, which turned out not to be, Jack would lower his spectacles and raise Ray Charles's Baby What I Say would take center stage. Whether we were at Kay's house in Birmingham or wherever there was a dance floor, when this song came on, he and Fafa would hit the floor and he'd lead us singing, "Hit the road, Jack, don't you?" My brother, my Baba Jack Guillebeaux has hit the road and he won't be coming back no more, no more, no more. Not in the form we've known. I will miss him, and so will thousands he touched. At the same time, an African proverb reminds me that as long as we call his name, he will always be among us. He will always grow among us. Earlier on Saturday, before I learned of his death, I was calling him up during a Warriors and Healers and Builders retreat when teaching the S&I line as a way to understand and navigate the dynamics of oppression. Jack had brought the concept to the table for he, Sophia, and I to chew on. After a little bit of chewing, we knew we had a hit. Yesterday's attendees were touched by the S&I line, and most began a new healing journey because of it. I know that Jack's spirit, his love, his influence will grow among us forever. Safe travels, Guillebeaux, safe travels.
Hello, family. Hello. I mean, all the family. It takes Jack to bring this reunion together during a pandemic, of course. But he had the power. He was the master of open-ended questions. Because when you went to a workshop with Jack, you ended up, as someone said, giving the workshop because he knew the questions to ask. I met Fafa first at a Baha'i summer school. Somewhere up in North Georgia. When I became a Baha'i, I went to a Baha'i summer school. And it must have rained like Hurricane Ida. But Fafa was there and she was busy teaching me, a new Baha'i, how to say Allahu Akbar many, many times, because I was born in Georgia, Atlanta, and basically knew nothing about any kind of Arabic or anything like that. But I was blessed to have discovered Baha'u'llah. And I didn't know Jack. I just knew Fafa Guillebeaux, which somehow I had heard she was a French. She had majored in French, and so Guillebeaux sounded right. Didn't sound like Farsi or Persian or anything. It just sounded French. So then I met Jack. And he was a gentle, as far as I was concerned, a gentle giant. We had many times together in different activities that were brief and sharp and, I don't know, just I held on to. I got married. I understand you all been married, we're married 56 years, and I was married, or am married, I'm still married, right? Married 42 years. We came here together. We'll see. But 42 years to an Iranian, to a Persian. And Fafa and Jack, you know, I was, of course, and still am, African-American. He is Iranian. And I did not know very many couples that were interracially or interculturally married, because it's a difference, you know, because I figured I knew white folks. I'm born in the South, I know them better than they know themselves. But I didn't know nothing, as they say, about Iranians. And I was here, I met Ahmad right after I started graduate school here in Athens. And, you know, eventually that relationship developed and we got married, and we have been married 42 years. So that was 14 years earlier, or later than you all got married. And so Fafa and Jack were like role models. I had several role models. I mean, I see some of my family here. I have Ann and Fairy June and others who are here. But they were role models for the interracial, intercultural relationship that we were in and marriage that we were in. And so, you know, one of the things was that Ahmad wanted me to speak Farsi, learn Farsi. And so Jack told me, Jack said, we don't do that. We don't do that. I mean, I hate to say it, but it was such a relief. Because, you know, the characters were different. You know, they weren't even ABCD. It was like, whoa. And I wanted to, but it all sounded like one long line. And they would be speaking. So Jack said, you know, don't worry about it. You know, we don't do that. We don't read it. We don't speak it. We do eat Persian food. We eat Persian food. But anyway, I mean, that was one of the jewels that he gave me. And of course, now I can speak all the food. I mean, I can speak the language, cook it, and do all of that, which is not that great, but nevertheless. And Jack, as you were saying, in terms of his journey, Sophia, you know, I was blessed, Ahmad and I were blessed to come up here and see Jack before, maybe about a month ago. And, you know, didn't know exactly what to say or whatever. I'd never seen Jack quite so you know, he felt fragile to me. So I leaned down and I said, Jack, this is Jane Mabubi, you know me? He said, oh, give me a break. I said, well, dang, okay. That's Jack. To give me a break. So we had a wonderful time, you know, reminiscing and talking and loving, and you know, I am eternally grateful to have had Jack and others in my journey, in the Baha'i faith. He was absolutely a giant. And I know he will be helping me out because he got a lot more power, and he had a lot of power here, but he got a lot more power now. So I'm gonna miss my dear one here.
Hello, dear friends and family. You know, I had honor and privilege serving with Jack for more than a decade on the Regional Baha'i Council of Southern States, when he started it in this country. I just want to mention a few of those incidents and also we were roommates many times. One thing about, because here it was mentioned already, about his sharpness. Most of the time was closing his eyes on council meeting and not saying anything. It became 9 people coming from 9 different backgrounds and cultures, whatever. He listened, he was listening intently, that's not missing anything. And he never judged anybody, any ideas. You know, we all come from our thought, we say something. Jack's habit was not just listen to what somebody said, but look at the background where that person is coming from. Because we talked about many different topics. He connected that thought with where this person grew up, what kind of culture he came from. He never belittled any ideas. He honored every single person's idea. And then when he started talking, you realized, wow, he was connecting all those things together towards a consensus building to show everybody, all of us, ready to have respect for one another's ideas and not saying, well, that's crazy. So that's one learning. And I know there are so many nice, but he was also mischievous. You know, you cannot, all of us know that. A few of my I want to recount some of our personal things. One day I asked Jack, because he used to go to Australia occasionally, a few times a year. And one day we were sitting at the airport. I said, Jack, how far is Australia? How long does it take? And he said, okay, let me put it this way, of the institution of the faith. He loved the institution of the faith. He was totally obedient. He had such a conviction that there was immovable. One experience I remember, there was the first time when the regional council was basically created in this country, a house of worship brought that into being. None of us knew what it was. It was the first few months, I think, we decided to travel different states, be with the friends, and sort of, we all learned together to see what this institution is. We came to one of these meetings, And the person who was describing about what the council was, whatever he was talking, Jack, we were, the rest of us sitting with the friends. And there was one gentleman in that crowd. This person who was talking, I cannot remember who the person was, could not convince that friend, let me finish. But he was keep on asking questions. Basically, his thought was, if the institution asked my opinion, would have come up with better decision. Anyway, Jack got up. This was after a long period. Jack came in the front and he said, the House of Justice created this institution. We are all learning what this is. What do you want from us? And then he did like this, he said, shoot the council, shoot the council. And then he quietly walked. And that was the end of that friend. Talking so that we could finish our program, whatever it was. But this was Jack. He was known nationally, internationally. I know those who, I don't care where even one person met him. He is going through the same process of grief that we are all going through. And I pray that when my time comes to go, I will meet my brother again. And here is the representative of my brother. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you. It was a blessing to be here.
My name is Sunshine. I'm speaking to you from Germany, where it was my privilege to witness the profound life-changing that Jack had on literally hundreds of days. I first met Jack in 1990 after that experience with development, negotiated with the staff of the navigation. As a result, I had the tremendous privilege to live at the whole place with problems and community. As he worked his spiritual nature with the best kind, God revitalized business base, and things done incredibly dear wonderful things. On the second visit, he said to me, Guy, if you think what I do is so good, you should see what my wife and I can do together. So, of course, I said, well, Jack, we have to have the dark man as well. And so we were blessed with the legendary Guillebeaux in any of Jack was particularly committed to the plight of the Aboriginal people. We called him Uncle Jack, and he loved him as a brother. He inherently understood how to be with him, and then he would transform to his loving side. I remember once I went out that visit with no original tour group. Jack heard that we were staying in, and he said, right, take it all night, I'm going to buy me a gun. And he was afraid that a snake would come inside us. And we gave him and you cannot fly a gun in Australia. Anyway, it was not a snake that caused the problem. It was the dingoes that laid at our campsite, ate our breakfast, and tore out someone's sleeping bag. It was an eerie sight emerging from our tents this morning, with sleeping bags strewn all over the campsite, and very challenging for Jack. His work in the Australian prison system was particularly prominent. He makes experience unconditional love, acceptance, and belief in their inherent goodness most for the first time in their lives. They had sessions with personal vision that was elegant and powerful beyond belief. That was so popular in the States that I often felt I was managing the groupies of a rock star. But this particular rock star was pitch perfect, as he delivered unconditional love, authenticity and wisdom, with unstinted generosity and skill. He always gave for me, even in the midst of an exhausting program, and never, ever said no. Sometimes sessions started with tough opposition from angry, resistant individuals who wanted no part of this touchy-feely stuff. Little did they know that they were about to experience Jack's hefty spiritual punch. Jack would settle in for combat with relish, thriving on the challenge. He would slay and kill their enemies and draw them one by one to a new recognition, self-approval, and personal power. These combative sessions were the ones that Jack loved best. I have often wondered how I would cope when Jack passed from this physical plane. I could not comprehend a world denied his gifts. Nor could I imagine coping personally without my precious teacher, spiritual mentor, friend, and fun-loving laughing mate. However, I feel that Jack is still teaching from an even more powerful place. I have huge expectations of him delivering from the heavenly realm. I patiently await my instructions. His authentic love and wisdom were a powerful and transformative power, and a gift he gave with generosity, humility, and grace to hundreds of people here in Australia. He leaves behind a gorgeous family, not the least of whom is my dear spiritual sister, mother, and precious friend, Baha'i, to whom we send our deepest Aussie love. Jan, this tribute comes with deepest affection from all your thankful friends down under.
Okay, Jack, listen up here. And the honor and distinction of the individual consist in this, that he, among all the world's multitudes, should become a source of social good. That he, among all the world's multitudes, should become a source of social good. Is any larger bounty conceivable than this? That an individual looking within himself should find that by the confirming grace of God, he has become the cause of peace and well-being, that he has become the cause of peace and well-being, happiness, and advantage to his fellow men, that he has become the cause of peace and well-being, of happiness and advantage to his fellow men? No. By the one true God, there is no greater bliss, no more complete delight.
I was not on the program, but there is so much love and joy and connectedness in this room that I couldn't stop myself. Thank you all for being here, for honoring my beloved husband. Jack was a trickster. Ahmad Jane spoke of how he freed Jane from learning Farsi, right? But he tricked me in the opposite direction. Meaning when we were just starting, no, we had just been married, or maybe we were engaged, that's right. So he went off for some kind of Baha'i meeting, spent a weekend with Feridun, our beloved friend Feridun Jalali. So he came back from that trip, and I'll tell you what he said in Farsi. He said, "Man to ra dost daram, hamsar zibaye man." I thought, oh my God, this guy would be fluent in 2 months. That was the last of Farsi that is. As soon as he knew the relationship was firm, then he only knew, in English, he said, "I love you, my beautiful spouse." All that in Farsi was very impressive, but that was it. There are so many wonderful things about Jack that you all have mentioned. And I had the privilege and the honor to be his sidekick. Thank you so much for everything. Love you all.
This concludes the memorial. As Papa said, much gratitude. Thanks to everyone for being here.